The crowd screamed from every corner of the arena. Alien voices filled the air like thunder. It was a blood sport, the kind that drew warriors, killers, and beasts from across the galaxy. And today, the crowd had come for a special show. In the center of the steel arena stood an 8-foot alien gladiator, covered in armor made from the bones of his enemies. His muscles rippled under his gray skin. 2 large fangs hung from his jaw, and his eyes burned with hunger. He lifted his giant blade into the air as the crowd cheered louder. "This will be easy," he growled in his native tongue. A large gate at the other end creaked open. Smoke rolled out slowly, and the lights dimmed for dramatic effect. Every eye turned toward the shadow in the gate. Then she stepped out. A human. A female. Small compared to him. She wore light armor, dirty and cracked. Her hands were empty, no weapon, no shield. Just calm, focused eyes staring straight at him. The crowd laughed, some even booed. The alien gladiator roared with laughter, his deep voice echoing across the arena. This is what they send me? A girl?" He shouted, "She is not even armed." The human marine said nothing. She just kept walking. Slow and steady, like she had done this before. The sand crunched under her boots. She looked up at the alien, silent. Then she smiled just a little. The alien stepped forward, dragging his blade. His voice was loud, proud. "Kneel, human, and I will make your death quick." Still, she didn't speak, but inside her head, memories played. Training, pain, war, betrayal. She was once part of a secret mission, deep in space. Her own team had left her behind after a failed attack, sold her to alien slavers to cover their mistake. Now she was here, forced to fight in this hell, but she was not here to die. She was here to win. The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. "Let the fight begin." The alien charged with a roar, swinging his blade down. It was fast, but not fast enough. The human marine dropped to her knees and rolled under it. The blade slammed into the ground behind her, sending sparks flying. She moved quickly, not wasting energy. Every step was calculated, every move with purpose. She wasn't just a soldier, she was a strategist. The alien turned, surprised. "Lucky move," he growled, and came again. She dodged once more, but this time she slipped. The crowd gasped. The alien grinned, thinking it was over. He raised his blade high, ready to crush her, but she stayed low, on her knees. Her head tilted upward, her lips moved. She whispered something. Only the alien could hear, and whatever she said, it made him stop. His smile faded. His blade hung in the air, frozen. She looked straight into his eyes and spoke again, her voice low but firm. The alien blinked, confused. The crowd didn't understand what was happening. Why wasn't he finishing the fight? Why did he look unsure? She stood up slowly, never breaking eye contact, her hands still empty. But the air around her felt different, tense, sharp, like lightning just before a storm. Flashback again. She had trained for years in zero gravity, fought robotic beasts, adapted to alien physics. This wasn't fear in her eyes, it was control. The alien stepped back, just one step. He didn't even realize he had done it. The crowd booed again. Their mighty champion was losing confidence. She finally spoke loud enough for the cameras. "You called me weak," she said, "but you've already lost focus. You let anger control you. I let silence control me," the alien snarled, and raised his blade again, trying to shake off her words. But her smile returned, calm, deadly. She moved like a shadow, disappearing to his right. Then behind him, then stopped. She didn't attack. She just stood there, watching him breathe harder, watching the cracks form in his pride. The audience didn't know who to cheer for now. This wasn't the fight they expected. This was a slow game of minds, and the human was winning. Then the announcer's voice boomed again. "Time's up. First round ends." The alien blinked again, confused. He looked around, lost. She turned and walked toward the gate, without looking back. Right Before exiting, she paused and said one last thing over her shoulder. "I'm not here to survive. I'm here to make you beg." And with that, the gate closed behind her, leaving the alien staring at the sand, still gripping his sword, but no longer sure what to do with it. The alien couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his stone cell, the blade resting across his lap. His muscles were sore, but not from wounds he hadn't been hit. No, it was the silence, the way she had looked at him, spoken to him. It twisted something deep inside him, something no battle ever had. Outside, the arena lights blinked like angry stars. He could still hear the crowd, still feel their confusion. They didn't cheer for him this time. They didn't roar his name. They whispered. In the cell across from him sat the human. She sat with her back against the wall, one leg folded under the other. Her eyes were closed like she was meditating. No fear, no anger, just stillness. He grunted, annoyed. "You think this is a game?" He asked through the bars. She didn't reply, just opened one eye and smiled slightly. That smile again, sharp, controlled. It was not human, he thought. It was something else. "You didn't win," he growled. "It was a draw. I wasn't ready." She tilted her head. "You weren't thinking," she replied. "That's why I didn't have to fight." He slammed a fist against the wall. "I will crush you in the next round," he shouted, but his voice cracked at the end. She noticed. She stood up slowly and walked to the edge of her cell. "I know you're kind," she said. "You win by fear. But I'm not afraid of monsters." He stepped forward, close to the bars, towering over her. "I'm not a monster," he growled. "I'm a champion." She leaned in closer. "No," she whispered. "You're a lesson." Before he could respond, alarms blared, bright red lights flashed, and the metal floor shook. The guards rushed in and pulled her from her cell. "Back to the arena," one barked. She didn't resist. As she walked past the alien, she turned her head just slightly and said, "This time I'll teach." Inside the arena, round 2 began. The crowd was louder than ever, confused, excited, angry. They didn't know who to support now, the champion or the quiet human who made him hesitate. The alien entered first, blade gleaming under the lights. He was breathing harder than usual. His hands were tight on the grip, his eyes twitching from side to side. Then the gate opened, and the human Marine walked out, same armor, same expression. She didn't run, didn't wave, didn't even look at the audience. She only looked at him. "Let the second round begin," the announcer called. The alien didn't wait this time. He roared and charged, his blade swinging low. She jumped sideways, rolled, and kicked dust into his eyes. He stumbled, just a little, but enough. She moved like smoke never there. Long enough to touch. He swung again and again, missing every time. "You fight with noise," she said calmly. "I fight with purpose. Stop talking." He screamed, slashing down hard. She blocked the blade with a sudden move. Using a hidden brace on her forearm, sparks flew, and the impact sent her sliding backward. But she kept her balance. Didn't fall. The audience gasped. She had blocked a strike that could shatter bones. He growled, now breathing heavily. "You're not human," he said, voice low. "No human is this fast." She gave a cold smile. "No alien is this easy to read." That line hit deep. His mind began to spin. Was this some kind of test? Was she trained to fight him specifically? He didn't know that behind her armor, a small device was blinking. Every move he made was being recorded. His patterns, his weaknesses, his reaction time. This was never about the crowd. It was a study. Suddenly, she stopped moving. She stood in the center of the arena, arms open. "Hit me," she said. The alien paused. This had to be a trick, but his pride screamed louder than his logic. With a roar, he charged again and struck full force. She fell to her knees, just like before. This time the blade cut her shoulder armor. She dropped her head, gasping, blood dripping from her arm. The crowd stood, stunned. She was down. The alien raised his blade to finish it, but she lifted her head slowly and looked straight at him. Her lips moved again, another whisper. He froze just like before, not because of the words, but because of what he saw in her eyes. Not fear, not pain, but control. She wanted to fall. She wanted to bleed, and worst of all, she wanted him close. She smirked and said clearly, "I needed your blood too." Then she tapped the side of her armor twice. A tiny needle retracted from her skin. Glowing red, she had scanned him, even while bleeding. The alien stepped back, realizing the truth. This wasn't a fight. It was a trap from the beginning, cliffhanger. Ending line. She stood back up, eyes blazing. "Next round, I'll take more than blood, asterisk." Long before the arena, before the noise and blood, he was a warrior born under two suns on the desert world of Graxos. Children didn't cry, they trained. He was one of the strongest, the fastest, the most brutal. By the time he was 13, he had already killed a dozen in trial combat. They called him Rothuk the Untamed. He rose through battle ranks like fire through dry forest. His victories were celebrated, his enemies forgotten. But no one ever saw him smile, not even once. To him, fighting wasn't glory, it was survival. Then came the war. The humans arrived, not with fire but with silence. Their ships blocked the skies, their machines cracked the ground. But what scared him most wasn't their weapons. It was their eyes, cold, calculating, watching everything like predators. They didn't scream, didn't roar, they just advanced, Rothuks. Forces were crushed, not by strength, but by planning, outsmarted at every turn. That's when he began to hate them, not for what they did, but for what they made him feel small. Now years later, locked in a glass cell above the arena, he stared down at the sand where he had just fought that human. She was still down there, still standing, still bleeding, and still calm. Rothuk turned away from the window, breathing heavy. He was starting to feel that same fear again, not fear of pain, but fear of losing control. On the other side of the station, deep underground, the human marine sat alone in a cold chamber. Her wound had been treated quickly. She didn't flinch as the medic stitched her shoulder. Her eyes stayed fixed on a tiny blinking light under her wrist plate. It was a signal. A coded message had been sent to a hidden human ship weeks ago. All she had to do now was wait. Her name was Lieutenant Kara Miles. She was not just a fighter, she was a ghost unit, trained in sabotage, espionage, and biological warfare. Her mission wasn't to win the crowd, it was to break Rothuk, to get close, gather genetic data, and confirm a secret the galaxy wasn't ready for, a secret her people had feared for years. That Rothuk's species might be able to resist human bioweapons. If that was true, it would change the balance of power, and Kara was the key. Meanwhile, in his chamber, Rothuk paced back and forth. Old scars on his arms itched with memory. He remembered the last time he saw Earth soldiers. He had survived their gas attacks, fought through their electric traps, and now they send her. But she didn't fight like a soldier. She fought like something else. Every move had a second meaning. Every strike had a question hidden in it. He remembered the way she whispered. When she was on her knees, she wasn't begging, she was studying. He looked at the arena screen again. She was gone now, taken to rest. But her words still echoed in his head. "I'm not here to survive. I'm here to make you beg." Later that night, while most of the station slept, Kara snuck out of the medbay using stolen access codes. She moved through vents and service tunnels. Every step practiced, every corner checked. She reached a control room guarded by 2 alien sentries. They never saw her coming. One nerve jab, one electric pulse, both down in silence. She entered the chamber and pulled up the arena system map. One tap on the screen. The next fight schedule flashed Rothuk versus her, again. But that's not what she came for. She plugged her wrist device into the console and started uploading the data she stole: DNA samples, muscle response scans, heat maps of his skin. Everything her team needed to build a counter bioagent. Suddenly, a voice echoed behind her. "Human." She froze, turned slowly. Rothuk stood at the door, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. How did you? She started. I followed your scent, he growled. You left blood on the arena floor. Kara didn't move. Her mind raced through options, weapons, escape. Routes, but he didn't attack, he just stared at her. Studied her like she had studied him. You're not here to fight, he said. You're here to study me. Kara said nothing. He stepped closer. And what will you do when you find what you're looking for? She looked him in the eye. I already did, she replied. Cliffhanger ending line. Ralphuk narrowed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he whispered, Then you should have killed me when you had the chance. Asterisk, the silence between them was louder than a war cry. Kara stood with her back to the console, the stolen data now fully uploaded. Ralphuk stood in the doorway, massive and still. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't need to. His presence alone felt like a wall pressing against her chest. You used me, he said, voice calm but dangerous. You made me bleed. Kara didn't flinch. You made millions bleed, she replied. This is balance. He stepped into the room, his heavy footfalls shaking the floor slightly. Balance is a myth, he said. In war there is only pain. She glanced at her wrist transmission complete. The human fleet had what they needed, but now came the part no one had prepared her for, because Ralphuk wasn't walking like a beast anymore. He was walking like a man with questions, questions that could turn dangerous if left unanswered. Why me? He asked. There are stronger warriors, faster ones. Why study me? She met his eyes. Because you're not like the others, she said. You've survived things that should have killed you. You adapt, and that makes you rare. Ralphuk paused, his fists slowly unclenching. He could smell no fear on her. Only strategy, only purpose. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the hallway. An explosion rocked the station, small, distant, but real. Ralphuk's eyes snapped to the ceiling. What did you do? Kara didn't answer. In truth, she hadn't done anything yet. But someone had. Someone who got the signal she sent. Your people, he whispered. They're here. She moved fast. Darting past him while he was distracted, he turned ready to chase but stopped himself, because deep down, a strange thought hit him. If the humans had come for her, they were ready to fight him too. Meanwhile, above the arena, fighter ships broke through the clouds, small, sharp, and silent, just like Kara. They weren't here to destroy. They were here to extract. Inside the control room, Kara moved through corridors like a shadow. She knew every path, every door. The mission wasn't over yet. She had one last task, get Ralphuk to the extraction point alive. Yes, alive. Because they didn't just need his DNA. They needed him. To learn, to break, to understand how his body worked against human weapons. But how do you convince a monster to come quietly? Simple. You make him question who the real monster is. Ralphuk returned to his chamber and stared into the mirror. Not to admire himself, but to face a thought that had been crawling inside him since the first round. She hadn't tried to kill him. She had outsmarted him. She had dropped to her knees and begged not for mercy, but for time. To gather data, to get close. And he had fallen for it. Now she was loose in the station. Her people were coming, and everything he believed about human weakness was changing. He roared, loud and furious, shaking the walls. But the sound felt hollow. The rage wasn't for her. It was for himself, outside. Kara reached the lower hangar bay. Her evac shuttle was on the way, but the path was blocked. She crouched behind crates as alien guards ran past, shouting in confusion. Suddenly, a large shadow fell across her. She turned fast, blade ready. But it was him, Ralphuk, unarmed, his hands empty. She raised an eyebrow. Here to finish it? She asked. He shook his head. No, he said. I came to understand. What's there to understand? She replied. I beat you without touching you. He chuckled dry and bitter. Yes, he said. And that scares me more than pain ever did. He stepped forward, slow but calm. What happens if I come with you? She hesitated. No promises, she said. They won't be kind. I don't need kindness. He replied, I need answers. Cliffhanger ending line. As the shuttle door opened behind her, Kara turned and said, then follow me, and see what fear looks like on your side of the cage. The shuttle flew through dark space like a silent bullet. Inside, everything was quiet, except for the hum of the engines. Kara sat near the front, one hand on her weapon. She kept her eyes on the screen, tracking their course. Behind her sat Rothuk, arms chained, head lowered, not in shame, not in fear, but in thought. For the first time in his life, he was being taken, not as a champion, but as a subject. He didn't roar, didn't fight. He watched Kara in silence and wondered, was this defeat, or was this something worse? Kara could feel his eyes, but she didn't turn. She had a job. Deliver the alien alive. Let the labs tear him apart if needed. But a voice inside her whispered, is that still the mission? She remembered the arena, the crowd, the roars, the blood. But more than that, she remembered the moment he had stopped, blade in hand, target in front. And yet, he didn't strike. That wasn't weakness, that was choice. The shuttle landed deep within a hidden military base. Guards came in with shock rifles and steel cuffs. They grabbed Rothuk, dragged him out like a wild beast. But he didn't resist. Not yet. As they pulled him through metal corridors, Kara walked behind them, and with every step, something felt wrong. Not outside, but inside her. She had always believed humans were superior, not in muscle, but in mind. But now, she wasn't sure what she believed. They threw him into a reinforced chamber. Lasers lined the walls, drones floated above. He sat in the center, still chained, surrounded by metal. But even now he sat like a king. Not a prisoner, a scientist. Entered, tall, thin, eyes cold. He looked at Rothuk like a machine to take apart. Begin testing, he said. No introduction. No respect, just commands. Kara watched from the control room. This wasn't what she signed up for, but it was exactly what she knew would happen. She turned to leave, then heard something through the speaker. Rothuk had spoken, but his voice was soft. He looked into the camera and said, tell her to come in. Kara froze. Her hand hovered over the exit door. Then slowly, she walked to the chamber. The guards warned her. He's dangerous. She ignored them. Inside the room, she stood across from him. Why did you ask for me? She said. He looked up. I want to understand something. When you fell to your knees in the arena, were you pretending, or were you actually in pain? She didn't speak right away. Then she walked closer, pulled back her armor, revealed the scar still healing. Pain is real, she said. But pain is not weakness. He nodded. You chose pain to win. That is not something my people do. Kara sat on the edge of the table, still holding her rifle. Maybe that's why we win. He looked at her, then said something she didn't expect. I don't want to fight anymore. Kara blinked. Are you asking for mercy? He shook his head. No, I'm asking if you believe in it. She stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, I used to. Later that night, alarms blared again. Something was wrong. Cameras showed 2 guards down. The lab doors unlocked. The scientist was found unconscious, and the alien was missing. Kara ran to the chamber, heart racing, but when she entered, she didn't find a fight. She found him, standing still, and not alone. He held a data chip in his hand, the same one that held all the DNA samples, but instead of crushing it, he handed it to her. I could have escaped, he said. I didn't. Why? She asked. Because I came for answers, he said. And now, I want to offer one in return. Cliffhanger ending line. Kara took the chip, staring into his alien eyes, and for the first time, she wondered, who exactly was being tested here? Him or her? Asterisk. The chip was cold in her hand, but the weight of it felt hotter than fire. Kara stared at the alien in front of her, a warrior who should have been begging, bleeding, or broken. Instead, he was calm, composed, and standing on his terms. Rothuk said nothing more. He simply walked to the far wall, sat down and waited. not like a prisoner, but like a guest, and that scared her more than his blade ever had. Kara stepped out of the chamber. She didn't speak to the guards. She didn't file a report. She went straight to her room and locked the door. There, she opened the chip. Lines of alien DNA data filled her screen. But hidden between the codes, something new appeared. Something that didn't match the files from the arena. Kara's heart dropped. These weren't just genetic details. These were recordings, surveillance footage from before Rothuk entered the arena. Backdoor files that shouldn't exist. And in one video, she saw herself talking to someone she didn't recognize. In a room she didn't remember entering. The audio was fuzzy but clear enough. A voice said, "She won't remember the first test run. The memory wipe is stable." Kara froze. She rewound it, played it again. She thinks she's on a solo op, but she's just another variable. Her fingers trembled. She wasn't just sent to study Rothuk, she was being studied too. The next morning, she went to the central control room. Every soldier saluted her. Every camera watched her. But now, she saw them differently. She sat down at a private terminal and began digging. Access logs, deleted reports, restricted transmissions. Her clearance was high, but not high enough. Still, she found enough to confirm it. She had never been the only mission. There were other agents like her. Each one sent into alien zones, each one monitored, manipulated, erased and reused. The missions weren't just intelligence gathering. They were experiments to see how far a human could be pushed. Before they snapped, she leaned back. Memories of war, pain, and betrayal flooded her. Had all of it been staged? Even her capture, her fight in the arena, was Rothuk just another pawn like her, or worse? Was he part of the program? No, she looked at the chip again. He had risked everything to give her this. That wasn't control. That was choice. Later, she returned to his chamber, alone, no weapons, no armor, just questions. He looked up as she entered. "You know now," he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. She nodded. "You weren't just a target," she said. "You were trying to warn me." He stood up. "In the arena, I saw it in your eyes. You were not like the others. You were searching for truth. Why help me?" She asked. "I was sent to destroy you." He stepped closer. "And yet you didn't. You had the chance to kill me, and you didn't." Silence hung in the room like a storm waiting to break. "You think you're the only one they used?" He said, "My species made deals with your people, dirty ones. Fights staged, warriors sold, all to study how humans think." Kara's eyes widened. So this was never war. It was a lab. The alarms didn't scream this time, they whispered. A soft mechanical hum passed through the walls of the base, like the system itself was holding its breath. Somewhere deep underground, a code activated. Not from the human military, not from the science team, but from Kara's own wrist device. Operation Endgame, activated. The screen read, Kara didn't blink. She had made her decision, not for orders, not for rank, but for truth. Rothuk stood beside her, unchained. The guards were gone. Systems disabled. A silent escape was unfolding. But this wasn't a rescue, it was a message. All cameras in the facility flickered. Suddenly, every screen lit up with a live feed, not from Earth Command, but from Kara's device. The crowd watching from a dozen colonies saw it, the truth, the hidden footage, the experiments, the betrayal. Images flashed of human soldiers being used like tools, of alien warriors sold like weapons, of leaders smiling behind fake wars and staged blood. And then they saw the two fugitives walking together, one human, one alien, side by side. The base commander shouted for lockdown, but no one moved. The soldiers stared at the screen, some in anger, some in shame, but most in realization. This wasn't a war zone anymore. It was a mirror, and everyone had been fooled by their own reflection. Kara and Rothuk reached the upper level. The launch pad stood before them, one final ship, small but fast, ready for flight. Behind them, a team of guards arrived, weapons raised. "Stand down!" One shouted, "You're breaking protocol." Kara turned slowly. No, she said calmly. I'm breaking the cycle. The guards didn't shoot. Not because they were afraid, but because they understood. Rothuk looked at them too. Not as enemies, but as prisoners just like him. He stepped into the ship first. Kara followed. She gave one last glance to the world behind her. Then the door closed. As the engines roared and the ship rose into the black sky, Earth Command issued a global alert. 2 fugitives armed and dangerous. Subject: human traitor. Subject: Gladiator-class alien. But across the galaxy, people were already talking, sharing the footage, questioning everything. A soldier had spared her enemy. A gladiator had chosen mercy, and together, they had broken something stronger than steel, the system inside the ship. Kara sat in the co-pilot seat. She looked at Rothuk and asked, "What now?" He stared ahead, eyes narrowed. "There are others," he said. "Other cages." She nodded. "Then we break them." He turned slightly. "And when they come for us?" She smiled. "Then we show them why they were right to be afraid."